Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Brailsford at SMB Nation, and this is the MSP Tech Talk Spring Quarter Edition. And boy, howdy, up here in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, we have a spring day. So very, very nice after some sun. Hey, first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Appreciate you hanging in there with us the last 2 weeks. We weren't able to launch spring quarter. If you did not attend the scheduled webinar on cryptocurrency, it was a series of events that prevented us from doing it at this time, and we will do it in late June. But long story short, unfortunately, the speaker, there was a tragic accident in the speaker's family concerning his two grandparents, and an auto-related accident. And then unfortunately, the speaker himself was admitted to the hospital with some health concerns, and it resulted in a 2-week delay. We tried once, we tried twice, and we were unable to bring it together. So we're going to revisit cryptocurrency in late June. But again, totally appreciate your cooperation with those delays. I know it's frustrating, and quite frankly, it's the first time we've had that in our company history. Use the questions feature to ask your questions, and I will be reading those to our guests. Dennis James is joining me today, and so I'll be reading the questions. Also coming up, I fly out Saturday for almost a week down in Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, Florida at Ingram Cloud. So hit me up if you're going to be at Ingram Cloud. Then I'm home for a few days, and I then am off to Lenovo Accelerate in Las Vegas the following week, the 7th and 8th of May. I'll be at Lenovo Accelerate, and I might just surprise myself and pop down to Portland on, I'm thinking May 10th, May 11th. So if you're listening from the Portland area, we have a lot of fans in Portland with the Technology Wizard user group. Love to see you guys and have a beer. With that said, let's get started. So Dennis James is on the line. Dennis and I have worked together on a couple of different projects. Today's topic is essentially digital marketing. I'm going to talk about marketing as a service a little bit later, and we're going to do a deep dive here with Dennis James. Dennis, introduce yourself, sir. What is your story? What cave did you climb out of?
Well, that's a good question. My wife probably could answer that better than I could. My background is primarily in the IT industry. I've done marketing for a lot of different companies. If you head on up to my LinkedIn, which is bit.ly/DJ-LNKD, you'll see that, for the most part, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and occasionally I'll run into a company that I really like, and I'll end up staying with them for a couple of years. Typically, why people hire me is marketing is actually pretty simple, but it doesn't seem very simple when you're trying to accomplish it and trying to run a company too. So what I usually end up having to do is come in and unravel everything and take it down to the lowest common denominator. So I'm kind of what you would call a guerrilla marketing guy who doesn't want to do a lot of marketing, just wants to do the stuff that counts. And so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a little bit some of the things that I do when I come in and I look at a company, and also you'll kind of find that I have a unique presentation. Anything could happen. We could go anywhere. So my suggestion is if you see something interesting, just go ahead and, pay attention as much as you can so you can ask questions later. And I believe that there will be a recording of this that people will be able to take a look at. Is that true, Jenny? Or Harry?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It will. And Dennis, before we get into the good stuff, hey, one thing I want to emphasize, folks, at your request, based on feedback, and Dennis, this is an important point, but based on feedback from prior quarters, we have what I would call some hands-on demos today. So we have the real deal, and you've asked for that. And so, yes, do ask the questions that you have. Oh, also a shout out, of course, to the sponsors that make this academic series possible. Today we're sponsored by Intermedia and SolarWinds, and we'll talk about those two fine sponsors in just a little while. So, Dennis, let's jump into the good stuff. These people are chomping at that bit.
Okay. Well, first let me start by saying that there's nothing that makes me more uncomfortable than buzzwords. And I noticed that for the most part, IT seems to be, pretty much squared up on the buzzword situation. If there's anything I say as a marketing guy, if you have questions about that, or if I do a fail on trying to communicate in a non-marketing way, then just don't be afraid to say, what? What are you talking about? So here we go. Oh, what's that? Well, we're going to have a little quick survey. We're not going to have pop-ups or anything like that. What I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the next slide and tell me whether and just write it down. You don't have to, share it with anybody. I'm more interested in you having an epiphany on where you stand. So here we go. How satisfied are you with your current digital marketing investment? Are you extremely satisfied? That's 1. 2, moderately satisfied. 3, not at all, poor ROI. I hate that. Or unsure, you don't do it at all. It's not really something that you've had a need to or had the time to deal with. So I'll give you 1 second to think about it. And here's your answer. Basically, I've gotten some data out there in terms of how people are working with their current digital marketing return on investment. That's like using AdWords, Facebook ads, SEO, banner advertising, and different things like that. So number one, there's not a lot of people. I mean, there's 11% that are extremely satisfied, great ROI. 30% moderately satisfied, okay, but not great. 3 is 12.7, not at all satisfied, poor ROI, and 45%, almost 50% of the people really don't measure it at all. So that's going to be a real problem in terms of figuring out how to use and run your marketing program. So here we go. Agenda for today is, have a plan. Well, I just want to make sure you understand something that I know if you guys are businesses, you already have a pretty good plan, so I'm not going to delve too much into that. I'm going to talk about the 3 top mistakes: email marketing, webinars, optimized search and social, and content marketing. Oh, there's SolarWinds.
There we go. So, folks, I want to talk to you about SolarWinds, a longtime supporter of SMB Nation. Right now, SolarWinds is interacting with the community on Mail Assure. So, spamexperts.com, but Mail Assure is their competitive package providing email-based security, and the relevancy to that. And Dennis, if you don't mind, just why don't we just kind of wing it here? But the relevancy to that is really zeroing in on one of the popular attack vectors. And I know it's not necessarily part of your core presentation, but boy howdy, Dennis, we all used to get so excited about the perimeter of LAN A, right? I'm gonna protect us out on the perimeter of LAN A. And while important, and I don't dispute that, while important, the game has changed. And I got to tell you, Dennis, these phishing emails and some of these attack vectors concerning email
I was going to say,
a deaf, dumb, blind dog, which is what Astro is now at 14 and the mascot of SMB Nation. But boy, if he, slaps that paw down on the keyboard while I'm not looking, we got a problem there. Those emails are looking good. Give me the fastest 2 minutes on your view of the world on the attack vector of email, all in the spirit of SolarWinds Mail Assure, if you don't mind, sir.
Not at all. Well, I think we all know that the number one, there's actually two areas, but the number one culprit that we're looking at is email that comes in, and for whatever reason it gets people interested. They click it, and as soon as they click it and they have something attached to it, boom, it goes down on the on their computer. Ask the Democrats on that one.
Yes, sir.
I think that basically they opened up that email and hit it, and boom, that's where it all went bad. And then we had another 6 months of people hammering around about it. I will be pleased to say that my wife is particularly good at catching them now. It's taken her a little while to figure it out, but once I had to take her computer over and had to have it deloused, and she couldn't use it for like 2 or 3 days, all of a sudden she got really good. So that's my 2 cents.
There you go. Well, thank you, sir. So, folks, what we're going to do is we're going to make available to you a trial edition of MailAssure for your participation in MSP Tech Talk. Stand by. You'll get communication from Jenny on that. And Jenny, thanks for everything you do over in the radio control room. So, Dennis, let's hop back in. This crowd, they don't suffer fools lightly. They want the good stuff.
Well, I'm a fool, so we're in trouble. So, like, number one, and we're not going to go over this very far, because if you have a running business and you're doing pretty well and you're growing it and things along those lines, you don't need me to give you a plan. So that's right. The end of that. Boom. So let's talk about the top 3 mistakes that people are making. And I know that this is true because I end up having to go in and deal with after the business has been going for a while, they're going, why aren't we growing faster? What's going on here? And, their idea of marketing is occasionally somebody will send out an email, something along those lines, or all they do is they just do pitches. They're not really providing information. And then when they get somebody to really do something, they don't track their conversions, they don't check the value of a lead, and they don't measure the lifetime value of a conversion that they have with people. Especially if you're going to pay for it, like Google AdWords and Facebook ads, if you're not checking it and checking your conversions with Google Analytics and other ways, you're really going to have a lot of trouble. So as we go through this, I'm going to show you the simplest way that I usually come in, I rip things out by the root, and then we go into the simplest way to track something. And we're going to focus on email, webinars, events, and phone calls. It's going to be very simple. We're going to take it right down to the edge. So, email campaigns. You know that there's a variety of email senders out there. There's Clickback, there's MailChimp, and trust me, over the years I've done every single one of them, down from the free ones all the way up to the ones that are costing like $5,000, $10,000 a month. And the challenge that I have with the majority of them is people just send out emails and they don't check. For example, here's the start time, here's the end time, message, subject. We delivered 24,000 of them. We had 717 bounces, and if you don't know what a bounce is, basically it goes in and doesn't get accepted either by the server or by the person themselves, and they bounce it out. We can see out of 24,000, we only had 18 opt-outs. That's pretty good, and opens and things like that. But what does that mean? Here's the key. The key is I can download a CSV, or sometimes they even get fancy schmancy and send you down an Excel spreadsheet. But what we start to do is we start to say, okay, here are the lists that we have. Here's the kind of responses we have. We have clicks, unsubscribes, opens, and a variety of other things. And we can also tell that this person, and you'll notice that I've killed some of the last names and other things like that, but we can say John wants to know more about administering SQL Server, and he's in California. This is the company that he's at, and this all starts with having a good list, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Postal code, now all of a sudden you have the ability to look around and say, okay, I'm starting to know who these guys are. And what this matters is, like, for example, at SQLsoft, when I used SQLsoft Plus when I worked there, we knew that we were getting about 7 million in revenue. And I knew that there were 800 people that were delivering it to us. And I had the name of every person as those people would respond in different ways. And we'll talk about, white marketing and black marketing later, but we had some good information on how they responded to the different ways we were trying to communicate to them. So also with GoToWebinar gives you the same kinds of information if you ask the right questions. Some people just keep it short and they just have first name, last name, email. I ask company name, I ask job title, I ask all this, and I make it required. And the main reason for that is I'm going to take the time to communicate via webinar. The whole point is to get this information back. And even with events that we do, you can see you've got first name, last name, job title. A lot of this information is provided by the people who are offering the event, but also if you're in your booth and you have a way of capturing that, then that's a great thing if you have like one of those little wands or whatever. And even with a phone call down, you're looking at, people are, if they're not using CRM, and I don't know how many companies I've been in where we have CRM, but nobody's really using it. So what's the easiest, quickest way to deal with this is a lot of times just to use Excel. And I know that because you're MSPs, you've got CRM inside, more than likely, in some format. I just don't know how deeply you're using it to do your reports and things along that line. I'm hoping that you do a good job if there are any Microsoft people listening. So the simplest way to track them is once you get them, put them into Excel. And what Excel does for you is it's not going to go anywhere. Somebody can actually deal with it. And I used to take the Excel documents that I used to put together before at SQLsoft we got CRM working and we were able to do reports out of it. And I would pass that information on to the salespeople and I'd say, okay, here's what's happening, here's what people are doing, and I want to show you, who your customers are that are doing the best for you. So if you look at it, once we take all that information into a single spreadsheet, all of a sudden I can tell you, wow, over the last 6 months, we had 200 people from Texas, 127 people from Illinois, 103 from Missouri. I can also tell you which are the most important companies for this vertical segment that we were working on. Columbus McKinnon Corporation, ASI, Wabash National, each of these represents, and I know who these 43 people are, and I know who these 15 people are. And the last thing is when you come over here, you can say, okay, Lawrence Joplin from CMWorks has done 41 different what they call interactions. So that could be somebody does a phone call, somebody accepts and clicks through on an email, could be somebody comes to a webinar, goes to an event, and over that 6-month period, I can tell you that this person right here is the guy that has the most interest in our stuff. And not only that, but I can show the salesperson each of those 41 interactions. And that is the bottom line, most important thing about keeping track of things. And if you don't have it fully set up with all the reports and things like that, you can at least do this. If people can't use Excel, we're in deep guano. So there you go.
Well, and Dennis, yeah, and what I would add to this is what you're hitting on. Let me frame it up a little bit differently for
Okay.
You know me. I'm a provocateur and I'm a little bit chippy. And in the spirit of that, what I would tell you is, and I think webinars should be a little provocative, but I'm going to say a lot of us people don't like to work hard. Okay. A tired story I've told on these webinars in the past when I did the big data startup. Oh, big data, wow. And I'm guys, it's just hard work. And then I would follow with people don't like to work hard. And what you're showing anyone on this webinar today can do. Okay, it's really not that hard. It's more the battle we have is it's hard work.
Yes.
It just takes time, brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think I'm going to take that frustration to my grave. I mean, I just but Don't worry about me. Please continue, my friend.
Well, let me soothe your fevered brow a little, Harry. The cool thing is most of the MSPs that are probably on this call, are doing things, and working with customers and providing them with different services and subscriptions these days. Remember when we used to actually purchase products? Uh,
Yeah,
so they actually go out and build this for other companies. But
that's what I'm saying. That's right.
yeah, oh sure. But the other side is keep in mind that it's just like the shoemakers' kids. They end up doing that out there all the time, and sometimes they may not be taking as much of advantage of their own skills as they need to be. So anyway, the bottom line is you can start here, you can do it bigger, however you want to do it. So here we go, and there's Intermedia.
All righty. So, folks, what I want to talk to you about with Intermedia is a new sponsor in the SMB Nation community, and let me frame it up a couple of different ways, and then I'll tell you what their pitch is. Intermedia has a large Seattle area office, and they have been plucking off a lot of people we all know from the old SMB team at Microsoft, some of the key players under Cindy Bates on the SMB team at Microsoft have now come to join Intermedia. So not surprisingly, we've rekindled our relationship, and they are they get it, right? They're a good citizen. They're behaving nicely. You can touch them in the petting zoo, and they don't bite. But in particular, what you're going to hear, Intermedia is going to sponsor the 6th spring lectures of MSP Tech Talk. Today, I'm introducing them. In the next few lectures, we'll have on some Intermedia executives, again, 1 or 2 that you will know, and then also some Intermedia partners. And what we're emphasizing in spring quarter is unified communications as a service. And the way that came about was Intermedia is best known back in the day as an exchange hoster. Now they're a CSP for Office 365 and beyond. But what a lot of people don't know is the reason they have a Seattle office, because they're actually based out of New York City, but the reason they have a Seattle office is they acquired Access Line, which was a not a telecom carrier, but I'm going to say a telecom hardware / service provider. And so they acquired Access Line, they rolled it up into the Intermedia family. In spring quarter, we're going to be emphasizing unified communications as a service. Thank you, Intermedia, and we'll be hearing from them over the next several lectures. With that said, I do want to do a little housekeeping. We're about 25 minutes in, so thank you for joining us. We are talking about marketing. We are talking about digital marketing with Dennis James, and I want you to use the questions feature over on the control panel. At any point, ask your questions, and Dennis, I'm going to interrupt you. But with that said, Dennis, let's jump right back into the good stuff.
Okay. The last, where we were just before this, which was the 3 mistakes, I just want to make the point that, when I started with SQLsoft, that's exactly how we put together all our information. But by the time I left there, Mark Scott, who was the CTO there, had taken, and we had full view of every interaction going through CRM and actually connecting up to each sale that we did. So the reports that he was doing in the end were pretty stunning in terms of showing people what was up and what was going on in terms of bucks. So we have a plan. You guys already have that. We've talked about the 3 top mistakes, and now we're going to talk about email marketing. So email marketing, the bottom line about that is, it's actually, to me, one of the top ways that you communicate with your people. You've got situations where you have things going, you want to communicate to them, you want to give your customers and the persons of interest information about your sales, new programs, other kinds of things like that. Or you may just want to talk about, some of the ways that you are working socially, you're helping different organizations with extra assistance. I mean, like anything that's going on with your company is going to give that fuller feeling to people, so that, the quicker you can get into that I'm your friend mode, the quicker they will feel comfortable talking to you. And so in order to do this, what you need lists, right? Well, wait a minute, what's that? I'm seeing something there. It's Facebook. Well, wait a minute, I don't get this. What not to do with
God,
lists?
you
Things
even,
are changing
doggone
around.
it, doggone it, did it even threw me off, bro, from the rehearsal. Yeah,
Um,
I thought we had a rogue slide. Okay, you got me, brother.
no,
You got
no.
me. Please continue.
I gotta wake everybody up. So, if you're not aware, Facebook has just basically screwed us. And they did it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is people make mistakes with their customers. They assume that, now that I have your email address and your other information, I can do whatever I want to it. I can sell it. I can, uh, have fun with it. I can give it away. I can send them stuff on something that doesn't even have anything to do with, what's going on with my list, with my company. And, basically don't steal users' info. Don't lie to your users. Don't develop apps to steal names. Don't steal information about others' contacts. And if you've been following the news, Facebook has actually done that. They have lists of people who have never joined Facebook because they're connected to friends lists and things like that. So that means that not only you, but maybe the Russians have, the website visits where you're going, the phone calls, the text messages, because if you put their app on your phone, basically their app goes down and grabs up your contacts and sends them back, your social rants, all the porn stars you may be calling, and anything that you're actually leaking. So that's kind of a challenge. Oh, what's going on? What the Facebook, for all of you who are worried about what's going to happen, well, nothing's going to happen for a little while, but something special is going to happen to Facebook shortly. And that is GDPR. And if you're not familiar with that, that's the General Data Protection Regulation that's coming out of EU. And so what they did is they told everybody ahead of time, hey, if you're not processing this information and protecting the privacy of your people, we're going to kick your butt. And they're going to increase that on the 25th of May. And so just to let you know, if you're doing any business in Canada or you're doing any business in Europe, you really need to find out as much as you can about this. And obviously, Facebook either is doing something different in Europe, or maybe they're not. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they just did that had no relevance to honor. So they have the toughest privacy policies in the world. So if you're going to send emails, do events, any of that, they can and will find the crap out of you. And they have done that brutally. And the US says privacy is your problem, and they haven't really dealt with it yet. But Europe and Canada see it quite differently.
Dennis?
Yeah?
Yeah. Let me kind of connect the dots here for this audience and with why this is in a digital marketing webinar. And folks, there's a couple of things. So let me start with the end of the story. So the end of the story is on June 6th at noon Pacific, we have, as part of MSP Tech Talk Spring Series, we have GDPR with Mike Simmel. So Mike Simmel's back. Mr. HIPAA is back because Mr. HIPAA has now become Mr. GDPR, number one. Number two, marketing is changing. I've lectured a couple of times, and I'll lecture a little bit later this hour about how marketing has become math and analytics. And Dennis, what I want to do is the relevancy of these slides on GDPR, and it's a good teaser to get people back here in early June. And by the way, we did it after the May 25th deadline. May 25th is when GDPR commences, because we know our audience. No one cared about XP migrations until after April 14th, 2014, the deadline. Then they cared. That's our audience. But Dennis, to hand back off to you, marketing is also compliance. We got math, we got compliance, we got analytics. But I just wanted to kind of show people why we're talking GDPR for a second here today.
Not a problem. And that's, I guess, the other side of this is sometimes, like when we put together our marketing programs, we don't always take into consideration the privacy needs that are being put upon us by not only Europe, but here in the US. If it's happening in Europe, I would expect that we're going to see something here, and Congress has not been very supportive of this up to this point. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking all of Congress throughout the last 10 years, 20 years, has not really taken into consideration that these kinds of things can be difficult to deal with. So on May 25th, 2018, I don't know what's going to happen to Facebook, but I'll bet, looking at how Europe has dealt with this stuff in the past, they have just not been all that easily flexible about this stuff, and they have hammered people. Is that a nice way to put it?
Well, you're being very kind to the Europeans, because I'm married to a German, and she has a way of enforcing compliance, let me tell you. But that's not why we're here. But it is going to be it's everything HIPAA is, and maybe more. Stand by.
Think about your BMW. So I have something for you if you'd like it. I have a white paper from Treasure Data, and they have some good information in there if you'd like to know a little bit more about it. And all you have to do is, after this is all over, just email me at dennis@persistentm.com, and I'll send you the PDF. I don't want to just automatically send it out to everybody, because that would be bad in terms of dealing with email. A lot of those, if I attached it and you weren't exactly sure that it was coming, it could go in that special spam folder. So, oh, wait a minute, there's something else you should be thinking of, which is if you are doing any kind of business in Europe, in Canada, or you just want to get ready for what's coming here. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've been receiving a ton of emails saying that these companies have updated their privacy policy. That's a key thing. On your website, you have a privacy policy, and you need to tell people exactly what is going to happen, when they give you their name. In other words, if you do events and you share those names, whatever you're going to do, imagine what would happen if Facebook actually told us what they were going to do. That would have probably been a very sad, sad moment for Facebook. So they didn't tell us. But I would suggest for you that you take a look at your privacy policy, you note exactly what's going on, exactly how you deal with the privacy, and it would be even wise to send out an email to all your customers and let them know exactly what's going on. So,
oh, Dennis,
yeah?
you're such a killjoy. But please continue.
So, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So, we're talking about lists. So, everybody, go to everyone in your company and grab their contacts. I'm not saying that to be weird. I'm just saying that that's where all your key stuff is. They've been talking to people for years. And unfortunately, what they haven't done is they haven't put it into your CRM or some other source that you have that deals with that. So, call a big meeting, say, okay, Bob, Sally, whatever, I need to get as much information as you have. And of course, the biggest problems with that, is it's not somewhere, and they can give it to you in Excel spreadsheet, and that's going to make it a lot quicker and easier for you to put them into, CRM or whatever else you want to do. And you need to make sure that they're in your CRM and you keep a pristine copy in Excel and take it home, or whatever your backup system is. Sometimes when I say these things, I'm talking about the lowest common denominator for people, but you guys are MSPs, you know how to do this stuff. What to do with the lists. Put every piece of info about each contact in your list. Don't just have the first name and the last name and a phone number, or first, last name and company. If you leave out the email, I'm going to be really sad, You know what I mean? So first name, last name, company name, phone, email, job title, city, state. That's the minimum. If you can actually get people to give you a little extra, note or two about it, that's great. If you guys have been doing a great job with it, I apologize totally for bringing this up. But having looked at and controlled the data in a lot of companies, I can tell you that it takes a long time to get that up and running because, you guys are running and gunning all day. Sometimes coming back at night and putting that business card that you got at that event or at the customers, I'll do it tomorrow. And then, in a year you find like a pile of great business cards that could have been making money for you. So when we look at that, let's go back to do things and track. And we're going to be talking about doing stuff here in just a second. But again, this would have everything in it. It would have all your events. It would have your phone calls. It would have, and by the way, just because you've got it in CRM, if you don't have the reports, it's just as good as gone. So here we go. We're going to go into, and now please be patient with me because, quite frankly, I have some new equipment here and it's not really been working out. And besides, we all know what happens when somebody gives a demo. So why do I like MailChimp? I have been using every kind of emailer because every company I go into, they give me another, oh man, we're going to try this or we're going to try that. I've tried $10,000 ones. The Eloquas and stuff like that could be millions of dollars if it's a huge company, all the way down to the free ones. And MailChimp is cool because if you have under 2,000 names, it's free. You can play around with it, do what you want to do, things along those lines. After you start paying for it, then there's ways that they can help you target. But you still have the ability to do almost anything you want. I don't make any money off of MailChimp. Just letting you know, I just happen to like it and I use it myself. So let's see if I can actually do this. Okay, boys and girls, let's see, where am I?
Well, while you're doing that, the context I want to give is, folks, yeah, and this is the good stuff, folks. So this is why we're here. Please continue, Dennis.
Okay, so if we look, we can create campaigns. And what a campaign is if you're going to send an email, you create a campaign. In that campaign, you can create the email and the other stuff. They have all these templates that you can deal with as well. I don't have any saved ones here, but if I did, that's where they would be. And lists, I just opened this up last night and put 3 names into it. One of those is Harry. And then basically you can also do reports. And of course you can do the stats too. I'm sorry, I didn't do a good job of doing that. So let's see if the stats are available. Okay, so 3 subscribed contacts, average open rate, things along those lines. That's going to give you all the information you want there. And of course, reports, if you have campaigns, all your reports will be here. You can compare them, and you have to upgrade to Pro on some of this stuff to get the good stuff. You can automate. Automation basically is where I send out something and, people reply and there's an automatic second email that goes out to them. So that's a cool way to deal with this. So you set up a series of these things and you just set it loose and watch it be happy and communicating to people. Or they say, no, I'm not interested, and it'll send them the email that says, oh, you're not interested, we're so sorry, we'll catch you later. Landing pages, I don't have any landing pages in here, but the cool thing about creating landing pages is you can put them on your website. And now instead of things going into the ether or, somebody's got to get up there and take care of it. If somebody, for example, enters their information into give us your email for a newsletter, that kind of thing, it'll give you reports on that. So you can create a landing page so you don't have to do all the extra stuff, that gets pretty tiring, if you know what I mean. So let me get back over here. Come on there. Come on. All right. So let's create a quick campaign. I'm not going to take you too far into this because you're not marketing people, but I just want to show you how easy it is, because I don't know if you remember, but at one time we had this stuff called HTML. Well, guess what? You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so who are we going to go to? Let's choose a list. We're going to go to those 3 people. I can actually personalize the to field, where I can set it up so that it'll take their first name and it'll put it into a to field. So, hey, Bob, hey, Jim, hey, whatever, right? And then I can just save that if I choose one of these. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to go back to from, let's say Dennis James. Dennis, and we're going to do, okay, did I do something? Yeah.
Well, and what I like about this is the nuts and bolts. And this is where the real work gets done. And you're right, Dennis. We could do hours on this. It's a robust product, and we could get into the templates and customize code and all that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to show them this, and then I'll pull a couple things out. We're not going to go any further than that. So let's see if we can stick in the logo. And there's our logo. And let's stick in a picture. So we're going to replace this. And in case you're wondering, that's Bucky J. He's my man. He's our new puppy. And basically, he's sitting there in the sun a couple days ago. He's under a year, so he's never seen the sun. And when I looked at his face, I just thought, he's saying, man, I just can't get started without my cup of coffee. So, and then you just basically add the different things, save and close, and you're ready to do whatever you do to it. I haven't really finished that up because, I'm not going to send out anything, but it's pretty easy to test it as well. So that's not going to be a problem. So we're going to go ahead and get out of that. There you go. We're coming back to you. All right. So the best way to grow lists. Now this is the key part, right? If you have great website information, emails with offers, answer this and we'll give you 20 minutes of whatever. Webinars and events, you obviously know how popular and important that is because you're at a webinar. Free tools, coupons, access to better info. You can set it up in Word on your website so that basically when somebody comes up and they sign up, you can actually show them more access that's preferred access. So say, for example, or if there's only something that you want CEOs to see, once they sign in and you give them access, they're able to see the page that says, how to look at your employees and decide who's the best guy or gal. Don't want to, not be thinking. So you could create templates, rank checkers, calculators, widgets, coupons or purchasing, free trials, different kinds of things like that. You can create membership level. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of old school. I still like hacking and ripping off lists. No, just kidding.
Jenny, we're going to talk about that.
Okay. Because Jenny, can you delete that from the rerun? Okay, Dennis, go ahead, man.
Yeah. Okay. So, do I need to buy lists? No. If you have 100 to 2,000 good contacts, that's a perfect way to start. You can set up an email newsletter sign up or pop up a page on your website, and you can actually get people, communicate to them. I mean, like at SQLsoft, and I can talk about this because it's like, now it's like probably 15 years old or something. We were selling about 7 million, a little bit over 7 million, and I told you that 800 people were generating the revenue for that. And so, I mean, like basically, because we were keeping track of all that and providing them good information, even though we had like 44,000 total names, only 800 were providing the good stuff. Now, if you have old lists, and like say this happens to people, when did you talk to that person? Well, I talked to them 5 years ago. Well, are they still good? You can use them, but you can't use them in, in MailChimp, because MailChimp has a very stringent policy. And in fact, if you screw that policy, you're going to screw yourself, because they will instantly shut you off and shoot yourself out. However, we're going to talk about clickback in just a second. There is a way that you can actually take a look at them and farm through them and see if there's something that is actually useful. Can I rent, buy, or own this? Well, yes, I've done that. In fact, I've purchased, like, for almost $15,000, 33,000 names for an SAP-oriented company I was with a while back, and we used clickback to deal with that, because as you'll find out in a second, clickback was created specifically to help people go through these old back ones and not totally lose their their use of like a MailChimp or something like that. And it's not illegal to do it. It's what it is it is in order for MailChimp to stay alive, they want to stay away from this. And they also make money on their deliverability. So if they send out 1,000 names and 800 of them are bad, you only care about the 200, but they care about all of it. So clickback, this is a pretty cool product. And there's actually another product that they have called Clickback Web, which I have not used, so I'm not really talking about it today. And if you want to take a look at it, it's bit.ly/cb-email. I actually use Clickback to check. They have a really good spam checker. And what that is I take my email and I stick it in there. And what it'll do is it'll run it through their spam checker. And I like I use a couple other spam checkers too, but I really like theirs because they look at it from a different.
Yep.
Yeah, the other ones cost money, and this one is for free once you've actually used it. And the cost is, for small businesses, $350 a month. If you have, like, a couple thousand names or 5,000 names that you want to put through there, you can do it, because they have the perfect way to help you deal with this. In other words, they have people that are actually working to make sure that these deliver as good as possible. So let's take
Hey, Dennis, a question. And by the way, I just want to say we use Clickback. Remember, at our core, SMB Nation's a publisher, our SIC code. And so we use MailChimp, we use Clickback. I'm not going to bore you with why. They do different things, and they do them very well. And Dennis is going to go more into that. But I do want to catch what you're saying about their spam checker. Now, yes, they do a very good job of it. Now, I will tell you, it's exceedingly frustrating at times, because there are acronyms, right? Uppercase acronyms that maybe use the word spam or free or whatever. And you have to play these tricks to get it to go through. But whole nother lecture. But let's get to the paying customer. Let's ask. We have. Hang on a second. Let me break out the window. There we go. Okay, now I can read it. Lawrence Steinert. Lawrence is asking, with the free version of MailChimp, are our contacts shared?
No.
And then the second. Okay.
By shared, I'm thinking you're taking them and sharing them with other companies, or they automatically think that, because you're using MailChimp, now they own your contacts, and they don't see it that way. Your contacts are your contacts. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
It does, and there's a follow-up from Lawrence. Thank you, Lawrence. The follow-up is so you know if MailChimp is GDPR compliant. Is MailChimp GDPR compliant?
So let's talk about GDPR. Basically, as far as from their point of view, they are. But, basically GDPR is handled through your company. And finding out, what GDPR is and how you can get busted is a really positive thing to do. Because they'll try to stop you. In other words, if you're doing something where you're sending things out and you're sending them out, too quickly or with the wrong information or they're too spammy, they'll try to stop you. But they can't stop you until you actually send something out that blows up. And then what you're going to get is you're going to get an email from somebody over there that's saying, hey, we put your lists and things like that on hold until we talk. And then they're going to talk to you about it. And if you get too many of those, that's when you go. So it's kind of like they're putting it in your ballpark to figure out how to deal with this and how to keep yourself from getting in trouble. That good?
Yep. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. Folks, keep asking those questions, but now we are truly getting into the meat of the matter with Clickback. Please continue.
All right, Clickback. So let's take a quick look at Clickback. It's a pretty cool product. In other words, there's the big dashboard. Oh, I was not taking care of myself. Hang on. Let's see if it'll let me go somewhere else without blowing me. Okay, hang on.
Oh, I know that one. They have a fairly aggressive timeout. Hey, while you're doing that, we have David Anderson, a good friend of the SMB Nation family. David, I believe, is now down in San Diego. He said, aside from using Excel, which low-cost CRM programs do you recommend for a small MSP? David, why don't I take a stab at that, if you don't mind? So, boy, there are a lot of CRM programs out there. David, I want to send you to one you may not think of. I mean, there's certainly Infusionsoft and some others you can Google. And you know what I'm going to do, David, is I'm going to write a blog about this. But today I want you to think about a friend of the SMB Nation family who they don't get the credit they deserve, Slinger, Grace Schroeder Slinger, SLINGR.io. And they have built a CRM with AutoTask integration, soon to be ConnectWise integration. And the CRM is based on the Slack framework. So slinger.io. Okay, back to Clickback. Let's do it, Dennis.
All right. Slack is cool, by the way.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So you have a variety of different ways that you can deal with this. For example, in the list area, you can see how many of your email generating types of lists you have, what you've used them for, job titles, things like that. And of course, there's the all-important export, which to me is the key for me keeping track of things. It's pretty important. Messages, they have segment builders. Here's the sends and things like that, the templates that we put together. I'm not going to go ahead and put things together, but you'll notice that the advanced HTML editor, if you want to do it that way and you're, still hip to that, there's sometimes that I'm stuck with HTML because I'm trying to send it into a special place. And the general way that some of these emailers automatically put it together is not easy. It doesn't go in right. So I'll just build an HTML. A lot of times, for example, I'll build, if you've signed up for a webinar, I will send something from Harry that just looks like a text document. And the reason being that, he's speaking to you directly. Now, I don't know if that's the way that Harry does stuff, but I use that with Mark Scott all the time at SQLsoft. Because sometimes you want people to feel like you're communicating with them. There's an easy message creator, which is drag and drop, and you can just upload HTML if that's what you want to do. So I can view it, whatever else I want. Then the campaigns. Come on, baby. Okay, one-time user campaigns.
Oh, and Dennis, forgive
Yes.
me, Jason Oman. Say, Jason, MSP on Bainbridge Island, our hometown. Harry Slinger IO doesn't go anywhere. Please confirm URL. Yes, Jason, I will. It is an unusual spelling. Slinger without the E. Delete E as in elephant. So spelled SLINGR.io. And then we have Lawrence Steinhardt asking the same question. Please repeat the URL. Okay, and Jason says, perfect, thanks. Okay, so Dennis, back to our normally scheduled program.
No problem. So you can see the different kinds of campaigns, and these are the same kind of campaigns that you would use in MailChimp, where we had $3.99, Microsoft promotion for their their products that don't use a classroom in their recordings, CRM less speed test to see how it was working. That was one where we just had a chunk of names. And by the way, you can also set this up so that it'll automatically take the things, the people that will open emails, and you'll see some activity, and it will take that contact and put it directly into MailChimp. So that's a pretty good thing to use. Monthly emails, you want to devise a set of emails that really communicates properly. Sometimes it's about some event you're doing, a new program that you're doing, here's what we did this last month, kind of an opening that way. And then the reports that you might want to do, you have several different campaign reports, lead generation campaigns. You can do testing with either of these as an A or a B. So if you have an email and you want to test this subject against this subject, it'll actually automatically pull a chunk and send them out so you can see which one actually generates the highest numbers. So anyway, I'm not going to keep you too long into that. Let me go back here. And so now we're going to move on to the most important question of all, and it's probably the number one question I get when I go out and I'm at an event and people figure out I'm a marketing guy that sends emails. And it says, can I buy lists with the quotation marks around it?
Dennis, I got to joke with you, brother, because you're sounding like before the wacky weed became legal up here in the Pacific Northwest, your stick there sounds like, hey, brother, can I buy a little wacky weed from you?
Yeah, but all of us really are looking for that great list, right? Or we get that $99 special, or somebody says, hey man, I've got 10,000 names, you want to.
I know there's let's just say there's a dark side. There's a dark side out there. Please
there's
continue.
a dark side. So, if you're hanging around, there's lots of great information about this on the web, or if you have a good email person, they can walk you through this, as well. And I know that in discussing things and sharing some things with Harry through the years, because I think we've probably known each other at least 10 or 15 years now, there's occasions where he's seen my eyes get big, when, I get handed that CD from a CEO and he says, hey, let's send out an email to these guys. Not good. There's a line. You need to be careful. So going back to the agenda, we've got a plan, or you've got a plan. We've talked about the 3 top mistakes, and they all have to do with looking at your list and figuring out how valuable they are and what you need to do. We've looked at email marketing. Some of these are pretty easy to deal with, but it's like you guys are experts. There are good email folks out there. I highly recommend that. For me, I wouldn't try to install CRM and all the extras because I know that I could not do that. So next we're going to talk about webinars, our favorite, and to be honest with you, I'm not going to do a demo on this because I didn't know what would happen if I'm in, and this is like one of those conundrums, circular reasoning. If I'm in a webinar and I'm actually showing something on that webinar. Can I open up another window of GoToWebinar?
What?
And I decided not to try it.
Well, Dennis, kids won't get this, but some of the people on the webinar will. But there's a George Carlin joke in here somewhere if he were still alive. Like, he'd be able to. You can't run 2 webinars at once.
Yeah, that's true. I can see
I miss that guy. Yeah, I miss that guy. All right, please continue.
Again, I've tried all of these. I've tried Join. I've tried, what's that one that Microsoft does? I can't never figure it out. What is it called?
Oh, yeah, Skype, basically.
Skype, that's it. Well, the original Skype I loved. But later on, now we're trying to figure out how Skype and Teams come together. But I will also say that I've done probably 1 million Microsoft Skype calls, and I've never seen them work all that well. They're working better now than they did, but the last couple of years, boy. And I know that GoToWebinar is bulletproof. I have had things happen. I actually delivered one time where a guy, my speaker was in New York and he was doing a security thing, and they put him in a room, and all of a sudden we figured out that in that room, because of the security, he didn't have internet connection. And so all of a sudden he's going, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, did you print out your webinar PowerPoint? He says, yeah. And I said, you got a phone? And I said, just tell me when you want me to click through. And GoToWebinar handled that perfectly. There's other stuff that's cool there too. But I've tried them all. And to be honest with you, the starter is perfect. For $109, you can have up to 100 participants, which, I thought that I would never run out of room. But I've actually had to go pro with certain companies because all of a sudden we figured out that people were hungry for our information. The other neat thing about this is if you don't want to do this, you can have GoToMeeting, which is a $50 product. But if you do this and you give your webinars this way, you get GoToMeeting too at the same time.
Yeah, and what I want to emphasize is that the analytics from GoToWebinar, and that, again, folks, that's a whole other lecture. In fact, Jenny over in the radio control room, since we're on a roll with Dennis today, Jenny, can you make a note for summer quarter? I will lecture on pivot, and Dennis, I want you back as my guest. But I'm not going to go into pivot today, but let's just say we're going to go there this summer with the analytics and GoToWebinar. But please continue because we've got good momentum. Folks, we have about, let me do a sanity check, we have about 24 minutes left. Please, please, please ask your questions online. In fact, I think I have a question. Oh, yeah, David Anderson. Here we go. David Anderson says, FYI, some public libraries provide Hoover List for free, but the Seattle Library is limited to 50 names per logon, but you could log on time after time. That makes sense. Contact a business librarian for more information. Thank you, David. That's actually really cool. That is a win. Thank you for the love tap. Dennis, like I say, we have about 25 minutes left. This audience does need to get back to the salt mine, so please continue. No hurry. Please continue, and we'll take more questions.
So, just to support that, if you like the Puget Sound Business Journal, and you have a library card, you can go in and get everything in the book of books that they put out. All the contacts, all the information about different companies and things like that, again, for no charge. So let's take a quick look at GoToWebinar. If you're not familiar with it, I'm not going to spend too much time, but I will talk about some of the things that are pretty important to me. So building a webinar, all you do is if you take a look here and you can see that properly, you schedule it. You have recordings, you have your webinar history, and it's surprisingly good. Now, have never been really a fan of their their first screen that you come and you take a look at, because that's not very flexible. I wish they'd do something about that. But in terms of just building it and building it quickly, it's definitely not difficult. So if we were to call this, you could choose a webinar that you've done in the past and just duplicate it. You can set up, what do you want to do with it? Generate demand, leads, or sales, one session, and the date. And that's not just Tijuana, that's Pacific time. And then once you're done entering that information, then you hit schedule and you're ready to go. Setting up the webinar, you can take a look now at, managing the webinar, whether you want to do audio, how you want to do the audio, whether you want to make it difficult. Ooh, I'm sorry about that. You can add organizers. You can deal with the branding and things like that, which, by the way, I thought the branding for this webinar was pretty cool. And again, share your webinar with your attendees and other kinds of things like that. And Mark Scott was, who I do a lot of business with, was nice enough to let me go up and play around with his GoToWebinar. Generating reports. Now, this is where, again, if you want that information to add to your list, you just basically grab this and you can have a registration report, attendee report. You can just have like the Q&A follow-up, because they add all that information as well. Insights is a new thing that they've got. It's basically charts and other kinds of things about it. And then, of course, you're looking at the different recordings that you have. And they have a new thing where they will actually put it up on the web for you. You can also download it and put it wherever you want. You could, with a very little change, you can throw it onto YouTube. You can put it on your website. But it's nice having them do the big numbers with it and things like that. They do that. So now we have a plan. We have the 3 top mistakes. We have email marketing. We have webinars. Now here comes the interesting part. This is the next question that I get besides, can I use this list? And that's optimizing, searching, and social. So basically, there's 3 versions of what you do here. There's search engine optimization. Doesn't cost anything. Basically, you build content on your website and things like that that's sticky. So you want people to stay longer on your website. You have more information on there that really applies to them. In terms of SEM, search engine marketing, that's where you're paying, Google and other kinds of places like that to advertise your company. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, because
and Dennis, again, I'm going to interrupt you if you don't mind, and let's take some time here. We have some time. Let's take the time, because Dennis, one of the descriptors for today's webinar was to talk about SEO and SEM. We have had other marketing webinars in the past, and that's why I say I'm going to push off pivot till July or August. That's fine.
Okay.
But we have people on the line today who joined to learn and have a conversation about SEO and SEM. And I just wanted to raise my hand on this slide, if you don't mind. Please continue.
Okay, so now we're going to go into taking a look. Harry, I am here to help you. Optimize search and social. So SEO is not paid. That's search engine optimization. That's where you have keywords, you build links, you make sure, like if you have a picture, you have the proper HTML information there. You work on keyword density and things like that. I'm not going to read all these. In a second, we're really going to go a little bit deeper. SMO is the new one, social media optimization. That's like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Again, that is something that is not paid. So you do a tweet, you do something on Facebook. There's a way that you can set that up so that, it's sticky, so that people in their little closed world of Facebook have the ability to find you. And there's lots of suggestions that go on about that. And SEM, the search engine marketing, again, that's setting up campaigns and spending some money. So that's ads, Yahoo search, and stuff like that. So we're going to go deeper now. Search engine marketing. Search engine marketing, again, Google, Twitter, Facebook, Yahoo, Bing ads. Surprisingly enough, I don't do a lot of it. And the reason I don't is because it's very expensive. I was working with a company a while back, and we were spending $10,000 a month on SEM, and that's not expensive. Surprisingly, if you're a big company, SEM is a perfect thing for you because you can pay for it. It'll shoot stuff at you. By the way, I don't do SEM. I'm not that kind of guy, but there are plenty of people that do. And if you really have a need for it, I know some people that I can push it towards. But the Canadians do 3.5 billion searches a month. There's traffic, and basically what it's doing is it's sending stuff back to your website. But I don't find it as valuable for smaller companies because, quite frankly, you can't put enough money into it to actually get a lot out of it.
Well, Dennis, let me give some perspective. I'm assuming you're familiar, and if not, catch it Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, but the hit show on HBO called Silicon Valley.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and that sardonic Coke bottle glasses developer guy, I forget his name, but one of the lead characters.
Uh-huh.
And if you want to capture the spirit, of my opinion, on on search engine marketing, where we're paying at our level, okay. Now this is all, guys, don't hang up on me, but at our level as MSPs and SMB, imagine that character on Silicon Valley going, SEM sucks.
That's true.
And that's how he would say it, my friend.
So the bottom line here is, again, now that you're thinking about search engine marketing in any way, shape, or form, I want you to think of the content. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. You're going to see something. Search engine optimization. And I actually spelled it right. That's good. And that's not paid. So what you do, for example, is you set up competitive analysis. You optimize the pages for main keywords. So let's assume I just did some product sheets for a cannabis company, Yahoo, and when I gave it to them, they looked at it and they said, "Why are you? There's so much repetition on this." And I said, well, what's going to happen is you're going to take this and it's going to be up on your website. You're going to take the content and you're going to put that up on your website as well. And then you're going to take that same content and you're going to do tweets and you're going to do a lot of other stuff like that. And so when search engines are out there, like Google, Twitter, Facebook, Yahoo, and Bing, they got their little, radar up and they're seeing, oh, well, here's the company name. And there's 5 times that we're mentioning that. We're mentioning these other specific aspects of this product that make it, great. But imagine that there's another website that, whereas on the website where I'm helping the guys, I know that we've used that particular brand, 10 times. And I know that that's right because I do a keyword search and I find out, oh, wow, what's the biggest number of keywords out there? And I set it up and there was only on the tallest one, or the one with the most stuff, only had 5. So what we just did is we doubled the amount of keywords. And I know that people are searching for that. And so when Google, if you can ever understand, Google, because they're constantly kind of going against you, they're looking for who discusses this the most, who has the most amount of content and really describes this. Because at one time they would take that one particular brand and they would just do, 200 in white behind, the text, the regular black text, in a way to kind of skew the searches. So there's ways to do this, but Google has gotten to the point, in particular, if they catch you doing it, they'll really bang you hard and make you not be on page 1 anymore. You'd be on page 23. So you do off-page promotions. You do analyzing and ranking and traffic, and you keep looking at it, deciding whether or not you're actually getting the number of people there that you need. And so this is search engine optimization. This doesn't cost you anything, except it costs you, creating the content, making it sticky, making the keywords work, and things like that. So social media optimization, again, is the same thing. The difference is now you're having to take the same thing, going with Twitter, with LinkedIn, with Facebook, you're constantly tying that back into the content that you created for everything else that's sitting on your website, so that it becomes even more sticky. So when Mark has a particular new product that he's sending out from SQLsoft 3, I send out an email. I also, at the same time, I tweet about it. I have a Facebook link to it. I have a Bing link to it. I have a LinkedIn link to it, so that they're all facing and coming back towards my website. Each of these has a tendency, and you can measure all of it. Let me go back one thing on search engine optimization that I didn't mention, and that's the fact that when you're dealing with this kind of content, you really have to set that up at the top. So in other words, you have in your plan, you go, I want to do some search engine optimization. I want to hit that up with using Twitter and Google and all that kind of stuff, so that you have a plan in the beginning, and then you share content between all the different ways that you're going to send it out. So that's social media optimization. And so here's the key. And, like when you look at like all the things that you can do with marketing, it all starts with being able to write content that can be shared in all the different ways that you want to deal with things. For example, like, if I'm dealing with Jack's Fish Spot, for example, where I help them build all the content in the website. What I did is I set up that content in such a way that he's the guy that runs it. He's got Jack's Fish Spot is down near the pier, and he's basically sitting across from another really good fish place that throws salmon and things like that. And so for his attitude and things like that, we twisted all the content so that he sounded a little bit like Anthony Bourdain, and he's working with Paul Simon's guitarist who's working on an album with him. And so I put a link to his album up there to kind of give it a little tweaky thing too. And then all the rest of the stuff that we were doing, the emails and, things along those lines kind of followed along with it. So we were catching all this and sending it to his website. And one other thing that, we don't think about very, very much anymore, and I didn't mention it here, is how valuable press releases are at setting up backlinks. A backlink basically is who's got it out there and who is linked to your website. Who is, so if I build a press release on PR Web and I send it out, we could have as much as 60,000. I've had as much as like 90,000 backlinks, because they're sending it out to all these different websites and other things like that, where they're going to be running that press release, and it's going to send those links back. Some people debate whether that's valuable anymore, but I think it's important. So when we build content, we build it for website, and right now, like 68% of the stuff that's happening off websites is actually happening on phones, which is pretty cool. And for whatever strange reason, men have a tendency to do more on their phones, and women have a tendency to do more on. Yeah,
Dennis, can you repeat that? Yeah, can you repeat that? Traffic via mobile. I'm sorry. What was that number again?
Oh, about 68% of the people that are.
I would concur.
You send
I've
out an
grown with
email?
60%, but but by the way, my 60% was 3 years ago when I was in the big data startup. So that makes sense that it would have grown. Thank you.
No problem. And you do the same content in your email, and you do the same content in your SEO, SEM, SMO, and so when you take another quick look at it, content marketing is research. It's surveys, it's analysis, and other forms of insight gathering. So if you ask, all your folks, hey, do you do these three things? Are you, how interested are you in those three things? Or let's say we don't ask them, we just send out emails, and these 40 people reply. And so in replying, they're saying, I like what's in your email. Then you have, you set some goals, you set a strategy around something. If you're into CRM, if you're into, Azure, things along those lines, there are segments that have certain kinds of importance to you. And then by measuring the different segments, isn't this nice? You don't have to just figure it out, in your head or take a guess. You can measure it. And that's the thing that turns me on the most, because in the end, I'm a data monster. And then 78% of consumers like to know a company via articles rather than ads. It's surprising when you get this kind of content, and as it comes into you, you react. And so in that reaction, it's seen in the testing that you do. And then last is, if you were to take content with the right approach, what you have to say about your industry, about what you believe in, your brand values, and then you match that up, in what people are, watching on YouTube. They have some inspirations. They need to know how to do something. I actually fixed a truck one time. We couldn't figure out how to do it, so we looked it up on Google, and son of a gun, it told us how to do it. So that really is the key to content, and what's sad to me is I'm seeing with the way that things are being tightened, when you look at Twitter, and I think you have a little over 28 characters that you can use and things like now, you're not seeing the same kind of writing capabilities. That we'll see what happens. So traditional marketing is based on intrusion, and content marketing is based on giving valuable information to people that's going to help them to figure things out. And so we are done. And so if you have questions, now's the time to hit me up if I didn't wear you out totally, because I see that we almost have everybody still on, which is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it is. That there's no greater vote of confidence as a speaker. Lawrence Steinhardt asked, with the preference for video, are short recordings as effective as a blog or other content? Let me take a stab at it first, Dennis. I have my own view of the world, and then please offer your opinion. But yes, and I view it for a couple of different reasons. That I think one of the overlooked jewels, or people don't appreciate the search engines out there. There are other search engines. So, for example, and I'm being a little facetious, but you'll get the point, that if Amazon.com got into the search business, right? Oh my God! I mean, look at the engine they've developed when you go shopping, right? I mean, they've been in this game a long time, and it wouldn't be that hard for them to be in the world of search. Now, with that said, YouTube, in my opinion, is always a top 5 search engine. And back to your example about, changing oil in a car or whatever, YouTube's my weekend warrior buddy, right? If I'm doing a fixer and a flipper, a house, all I need is YouTube. Although, Dennis, I won't work with live electrical. Okay, I do have limits.
My son has a friend who's an electrician, so I get all my electrician stuff done there.
Yeah, and then I'll end my opinion on this because it's a really good question. and to get a little more humor, but up here in the Pacific Northwest, I actually have a friend who is in the cannabis industry, on again the legitimate side. It's a real business, and it's funny, but they are delivering some content via video because of the consumption of cannabis doesn't lend itself to deep reading, but it does lend itself to watching little news clips on video. So I'll end on a chipper note, but Dennis, video as content. What's your opinion, sir?
Oh, it's fantastic. Videos are really the candy. And I've done them in a variety of different ways. I've done, 40-minute, almost film types of videos where we're showing people how to use, MIDI soft keyboards and doing music and different kinds of things like that. I've done, a variety of different kinds of videos for people. Some of them are just real casual. Interviews are fantastic. If you can get a customer to actually give you a reference and, for that reference, do a video too, oh man, it becomes something that you can stick on your website and go forever. Now, there is a limit to the amount of time that you can take. And if you want to figure out how long that is, I'd like you to go up to YouTube and spend about 2 hours looking at different videos. And I'll bet you that you have a limit in terms of what you will look at, unless it's a documentary, or something like that from Great Britain. You'll watch that for an hour, but you won't watch it over an hour. You'll watch it. It could be an hour and a half long, but you won't go that far. If it's a small thing, food wishes is a great example. This guy is brilliant on the videos. I like to cook anyway, but there's only so much I can do. I mean, if you really want to see somebody do videos perfectly, and most of his videos are no longer than 5 to 6 minutes, because that's how long we'll watch before we get bored, even if it's fantastic, So you need to think about, who you're talking about, what's your subject. You need to look at your customers and, what is the essential parts of what, like, if you're going to try to sell them Azure, I don't think Microsoft has done a fantastic job in certain ways, because they just put together so much content, that it can't all be, sterling. But I've seen some great Azure videos that, last maybe about 5 minutes, and they talk about, so you have Azure. What does that really mean to you? It's not a toy. How's it going to make your business better? And not just on the surface. Walk me into it. If you do video that way, I think it's fantastic.
Hey, and Dennis, what I'm going to start to wrap us up. Thanks for the questions, everybody, especially David and Lawrence and Jason today. Check your chat window, because I want to share a video with you. The cat's out of the bag on this one. The house that Small Business Server built, my house on Bainbridge Island. And this is a realtor video, so I'll get to the relevancy of it, but we have listed the house at hopefully the peak of the Seattle housing market. Kids are gone and onward and upward and yada, yada, yada. But still here, tomorrow, no doubt, just downsizing with the kids gone. But what I want to emphasize is the video from Vimo was done by our realtor. And it is literally, Dennis, a case of a video speaks 1,000 words, right? It is the video listing. I love it. And they were using drones. And to everyone's point, this is highly digestible content, right? If you avail yourself of clicking through and reading this, watching the video, it's like, I get it. I'm interested or I'm not interested, but man, that was cool. Dennis, take us out with a shout out to your email address and the phone, and then I will bid adieu to the audience. We are at time, my friend. Thank you very much for
no
lecture
problem. Today. Well, I have just one comment to make on all of it, and I did look at Harry's video. And if you think about how you can sell the dream, what's everybody's dream? Why would they want to do whatever you're selling? That really is the key part of your marketing. And so my email address is dennis@persistentm.com. If you'd like a copy, a PDF of the Marketer's Guide to GDPR, just go ahead and email me and ask for it. And then last, if you want to give me a call directly, it's 206-619-1604. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jay.
All right. And I got Jason Omans. Jason, I'm going to out you. He sent me a private email. Jason's, again, an MSP on Bainbridge Island. Jason says you're moving. Now, Jason, just sit down, back away from that keyboard. Jason, I think we're just going to move up north to Kingston with the start of the new fast ferry in July. So not to fear, my friend. I'm not going to say I'm retired because I'm not, but I am certainly downsizing with the 2 kids in college, if that makes sense. Dennis, does that make sense?
Well, let me put it to you this way. My son came back, he rebounded once, and then when he left the next time, we immediately changed his room into my office. So
I love it. All right. Well, folks, have a great day. We're going to see you back in 2 weeks for the next edition of MSP Tech Talk. This is the start of spring quarter. Thank you for those of you that tried to attend the last 2 weeks. And our speaker on cryptocurrency had a family tragedy as well as a hospitalization. I'm so sorry about that. He'll be back in late June. Thank you very much. Jenny in the radio control room, thank you very much. We'll see you next time, folks. Have a great day.